Salute.
Salute. Hey.
Hey, to start it off, is there like a before we even introduce the man in front of us, is there any sort of army cheers chants that you know of that you can teach us? Nothing.
None now the camera's on.
Yeah. Sweet as. Alrighty. All right, JP.
Right.
Do you want to do the honours?
Yes, definitely. So I'll probably let Wes do most of the talking, but Wes Hennessey we have here. He is a Special Forces Commando, and he's obviously done heaps of stuff as well, which I'll probably better off asking Wes instead of me just rattling on, because he's got awards as long as your arm.
Longer than your arm.
As long as your arm. So no, it's going to be great. Wes is going to be talking a lot today about mindset mainly, and what it takes to be what he's got to today. So Wes, I'll pretty much just hand it over to you. I don't really want to say too much because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But yeah.
Why don't you want to say the wrong thing, JP? Are you scared?
Yeah. I don't know what's going on.
Are you scared, man?
JP's very loud.
Yeah.
Today, for some reason, he's very calm.
Yeah,
very calm.
He might have a Rambo knife under there.
I don't. I get the impression this guy doesn't need a knife at all. He's just like bare knuckle sort of dude.
He'll just use his pinky. So welcome Wes Hennessey to the podcast.
Yay! Hero with whiskey.
That's it.
What?
I know. I was thinking we should get Hennessy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
Far out.
Next time.
Where's our producer?
We'll have to come back. So cute.
All right, excellent. So, Wes, I probably want to ask, I guess just to get out of the way straight away, I was going to read you awards. You got 3 of them here. What? If you could let us know a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I've been decorated 3 times, as it's referred to as. The first time was in 2006, which is a valorous achievement, as it's called. So I got a Bronze Star medal from United States Special Operations with V device, as it's referred to, which refers to valor. So that's their 3rd highest award. The 2 above that are the Congressional Medal of Honor and the Silver Star.
If you don't mind me asking, what do you have to do to achieve that?
Lots of silly things.
Calculated silly things, yeah.
I think to take a quote off the paragraph on there, it says, with a complete disregard for his own life and safety over a protracted period of time during multiple nighttime compound assaults. Wow. Words to that effect.
Wow.
So
that's a tattoo.
There's a fine line, I guess, in between pushing the envelope or silliness, so to speak, or taking risks. And being courageous or valorous. And the second award is a meritorious achievement in combat operations for 2 years later in Afghanistan again. And that's when I was a counterinsurgency advisor. So essentially for several months I worked with all the different coalition special forces units and went on combat operations with them. So German Special Forces, Italian Special Forces, Spanish Special Forces, Canadian, US, I can't remember whether I mentioned German, and a few others. And then and I would make a assessment, for want of a better term, on how their operations were going, but more importantly in the direction and the line that we wanted them to go to in regards to counterinsurgency. So we realised, probably unfortunately a little bit too late in the Afghanistan conflict, that we're up against a extremely well-functioning embedded insurgency, and that we needed to change the way that we were fighting. And operating, so just not when we're actually doing the fighting bit, but more so when you're operating in and around them, as to get the hearts and minds of the people in this extremely complex environment. And then the third award there is a Conspicuous Service Medal, which is invested upon me by the Governor General. So that entitles you to post-nominals. And that's for exemplary service in 2 Commando Regiment over an extended period of time, I think it reads. And because at that time, when we get those awards and when Special Operations get those awards because of protected identity status, it's kind of funny. So you're at this beautiful, you're at the governor's house, and it's all white tablecloths and waiters, and it's quite a big do. So everyone's there in their uniform, or we're there in civilians. So people are like, who are these guys? And then when they read everyone's thing out, they read out the full citation. So you did this, and everyone's like, oh my God, and then they read ours out. It's like, did good service. It's like, because they don't go into the details of what the award is,
Right.
So it's kind of funny. And everyone kind of looks at you and goes, what was that about?
Yeah.
You just sort of grab the award and slink back into the crowd.
That they should know that, like, when you say did good service, that's like 10 times what you deserved before. It's like, good job. The guys done a real good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
So you've done a few things as well. That you've been in the Olympics counter-terrorism thing. That would have been...
Yeah, so I did a lot to do with counter-terrorism over the years. Obviously, the Operation Gold, as it was called, was a domestic counter-terrorism for the then Sydney Olympics. So in 2000. That was before 9/11, so there was certainly a different attitude towards security. It was still extremely serious.
Yeah.
But to use Operation Acolyte, which was the Commonwealth Games in 2006 in Melbourne, a couple of years later, like a complete different. There's just a complete different vibe and security apparatus, and from everything from the equipment to the government agencies, the assets that were afforded, like things then were like wound up about 10 extra notches, and other than that, there's just multiple. Exchanges with numerous units and stuff overseas. The special police in Germany. I've worked extensively through Southeast Asia. I've done 6-7 trips to Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, East Timor, and a few other things.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been a piece of cake.
Unstressful experience.
And for the record, it didn't affect me at all.
As he grabs his
Oh wow, that's really good.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
Okay, great. Well, I guess we'll start with ask you a couple of questions that we're all sort of biting at the bit to ask you, because why we brought you on today was because I believe that your mindset and how you are able to handle yourself and other soldiers when you're in the force, etc., could definitely be transferred into business life. And I definitely think that after our conversation on the phone, you're going down that path yourself where you're wanting to get into a bit of coaching and motivational speaking and all that sort of stuff. And by the sounds of it, very well deserved. You got more. You probably got 10 times the amount of authority to talk about self-discipline mindset than most entrepreneurs do these days. I think.
Sure.
So yeah, in regards to that, when you were. What would you call it when you're in the force? Like, what's it, on duty, or what's it called when you're
on duty? Yeah,
on duty. Yeah. So when you're on duty and you find your other team members are lacking motivation or starting to second doubt themselves or starting to procrastinate about doing things, and you're out way beyond, I guess, a place where there's return. Like, you have to all move together. What were some of the ways that the Army taught you to adapt and overcome the situation to be able to engage in a tactical sort of format?
Yeah, so there's about, I lost count of 11 questions there, Andrew, so I'll track back across them. So first and foremost, the number one thing for us and what I learnt in regards to what's most important is mindset.
Yeah.
Our mind, I always refer to our mind. If I was to break your arm now, and this is an extreme example, but if I was to break your arm now, and and then
Easy achieve. That's why Andrew's now sitting.
all right, I'll change it. Imagine I was to break JP's.
Yeah, way better. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Now I can see that happening as well.
So I'll use the analogy of break JP's neck. No, in all seriousness. So with when we break a bone in our body, to use a simple example, and even if it's a complex fracture, you splintered. You go off to the hospital. You'll get an X-ray. They can give you some painkillers, give you some immediate relief. They'll do an immediate X-ray. They'll know what's wrong, and they'll either straighten it, re-break it. Worst case scenario, they'd have to put some little stints in that we've seen, not stints, the little splints, that we've all seen, I'm sure family and friends use, and then they screw that in, etc. You get the point. When something happens with our mind, or when we're trying to track our mind, that immediate feedback of where and what the mind's, not thinking, but with the status of the mind, like the true status of it. There's no immediate return or feedback for that. You could see a psychologist for a year and not know what's going on. So then coming back in line to your question, so one of the biggest things we work on, is mindset, and it's hard to define then what work we do on it because it's so, progressive and tiered. Because a lot of people ask, well, then what do you do to help mindset? Well, lots of things. But our training, so the repetitiveness in our training and the discipline. And then the other things, in particular to your question about, what are some things that the Army refers to. So some sayings that I personally, developed and used, when I, was in positions in charge of, sort of the standards and large bodies of special operations operators. So I developed the analogy of, with excellence, that if you put a dot on the horizon, so if you understand, we can see the horizon, but you can never actually reach it. No. So if you put a dot on the horizon, and we call that excellence. So as we are getting better and better at whatever it is, whether it's real estate, whether it's investment, it's irrelevant. Whether you're a special forces operator, the analogy is the same. As you get closer to your point of excellence, what happens to the point? It's on the horizon, so you never ever get to it. So the reason I explain it like that, because it sets people's mindset where it needs to be. In a lot of high performance areas, whether it's football teams, the cream of executive and corporate world, there are people, unfortunately, that get comfortable with where they are, or get arrogant with the position that they've reached, and they feel that position, is some status position that they're here now. Well, for us, there is no here now. Here now doesn't exist. When we are there, when we get to here, using the analogy again, then you haven't got any close to where you're aspiring to be. So always trying to get to that dot, and the closer you get to it, it obviously just stays actually, mathematically, it stays where it is. You never ever encroach upon it. So I would use that and say, that we're in a constant pursuit of excellence, and excellence sits on the horizon. And if you ever use in any of our language, training, documentation, even when we're complimenting each other, I would never ever use the words perfection, never use the word expert, never use the word excellence. Like, to me, those words are overused. And once you start using those words, you're actually on the downhill run of high performance. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
And if the soldiers, say for instance, have you ever been in battle and you've had a soldier just really opt out, like they're just like, I can't go forward anymore, I'm shutting down, and almost shut down, mentally and physically? What would be? Can you explain a scenario where that happened and how you helped the person?
Yeah, definitely. So I won't go into details for the sake of individuals, but I will be able to definitely answer it for you, Andrew. So two things there. So first of all, as you're fast learner, I like using examples or analogies because people can picture them and sort of feel and see it. So if we look at an explosive device, so just say, for example, this room now, and an explosive device goes off over in this corner here. And for the audience listening, I'm pointing to a corner of a room 5 metres away that's in the same proximity, for argument's sake, of all of us. So an explosion goes off there. The point there, the exposure to all of us is identical. Like, we agree on that, without getting into too much detail. However, tomorrow morning, Andrew comes to work, he's fine. JP is got the jitters, and I'm in hospital. So the point being, every single person deals with things differently, irrespective of what it is. Now, the variables behind that are many, which leads me direct to the next point, which is the bucket analogy. So which is another simple thing to imagine, that when you ask about would there be guys that would happen to. So taking a step back, first of all, in the selection process, we go to great length to ensure that doesn't happen. Yeah. However, despite what we think of ourselves sometimes, that we're actually inhuman, we are human. We're like everyone else. We bleed, we cry, and we have fatigue levels, and we have an emotional bucket. We're just very good and very well versed at how we exercise and compartmentalise all that. So through the selection course, when you look at roughly 500 to 1,000 people, may think about doing, so in the Australian Defence Force, may think about doing Special Forces selection. Out of them, about 300 odd, and these are relatively good statistics, out of that about 300 odd will put pen to paper and apply to do Special Forces. Out of that 300 odd, we what you call paper cut. So we'd sit here just like you would review, a financial decision or a property, and you're having a look at it and you're weighing it up. What are the risks here? What's standing out? What's not standing out? Then basically then out of that, we'd get 100 to 120 people would step off the bus, what we call it. So on the start day, so day one of selection course, they're off that bus. So the point I'm making, and I am getting to your question, is already you can see we've narrowed right down, the population and the standard of person and quality of person and mindset of person that's even starting at that start point. So which works out to 0.001% or something or less, of that's just within our community, not of humans or population.
Is that mental? Would you say that's a mental breakdown or a physical breakdown of people giving up in that first section, like that 0.0?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of both, but probably where most people, I don't like to use the word break, where most people, give in, but I'm out of here, Mav. But where that is, it is a mental thing, because generally when people hurt themselves physically, they'll try and push through that. Okay. We have a doctor with us the full time, so I'm now talking specifically for the audience. I'm talking specifically about the Special Forces selection course, because we've just jumped around here a little bit, which is fine. So there's a doctor there, and he can make those assessments. So if it's a medical thing, they'll generally push through that pain barrier. We'll see whether it's patchable, so to speak. If it's a break or a little stress fracture, or they've just ripped a skin off a heel or whatever it is. If they've got a compound injury in their back, it's like no. Then depending on how long they carried it, felt it, etc., they'll be then given the option. So they'll be given a medical withdrawal. And they could be asked to come back, or they'll be medically withdrawn and not asked to come back, depends on the severity of injury. Wow. Parking all that and coming back online to answer your, or to partially answer your question. So we go through that extensive process, and part of that process is, there's a continual psychological evaluation in regards to resilience. So, when you ask, do people, do Special Forces operators get exposed to, a single event or something and have a adverse reaction or a non-desirable reaction? Most certainly. However, what we've done prior to that point in time, so whether back here is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, however long, there's so much that's been invested into ensuring or to reducing the likelihood of that happening. Yeah. So, did I see that happen? Once or twice. Is it common? Not at all. So with thousands and thousands of operations, and you're talking about extremely complex combat, and then just some of the other situations that being in these countries, that you're faced or that you're exposed to, frankly they're horrific. To see to walk into a village and see 5 young girls with all their hands cut off. It's not just when you're getting shot at. There's things you're exposed to, which scar you. Unfortunately, scar you for life.
Yeah, for sure. You had some questions.
Yeah. So, prior to the podcast, Wes and I had a bit of chat, and Wes mentioned about you want to get into business again, or maybe starting out in business. What sort of business are you thinking of doing? Because we're more than happy to help you promote your business, and happy to get you back for episode 2, because I personally want to listen to more of your stories.
Excellent. Thanks for that lead in. I've got a company. It's called 7 Horses Co.
Yep.
I went through what that means with JP, and there's a I recently just got the graphics and imagery done. It's on my page. But we've done a lot of thought and analysis within that, and where I'd like that to go. And at the moment, I'm still building some architectures in the web page and some other things. But what I've naturally sort of found myself fall into, and that's a really important point, is it's happened quite organically, and that is I'll use 3 or 4 different terms, and that I am deliberately still keeping it broad, but life coaching on a one-to-one individual basis.
Yep.
When people are in any type of life bungle, and as I think everyone in this room would attest to, from extreme financial difficulty. I've gone from having, at one point, probably $1 million worth in assets and, $100K cash in the bank to having $3.73 in an account. So to me, to go through some extremities like that, to, sadly, leave a long-term, extremely loving, nurturing, beautiful relationship, the transitioning component of the military, through to some other prescription and other addictions and coping mechanisms, just trying to get through certain things in life. So, I have a saying that I don't understand, frankly, how people can coach people when they haven't had any of those experiences.
100%.
And I've met life coaches that are 23 years old, and no offence to them. I'm not certainly having a go at them, or I'm not making any statement towards them. It is what it is, and a lot of those people are doing fantastic work. But I think, and certainly from what I've found, there's a lot of people out there, and for me personally, that when you're in those positions and circumstances, it's extremely difficult for you to see the clarity. So I have a very sort of, pragmatic, forthright approach, and just, a real world approach. And that's just like, what's the problem? There's no problem. There's only solutions. The solution might happen next week. It might be something that we need to do 3 or 4 different, things in your life need to change. Especially when you're talking, toxic relationships that you can't get away from. Financial problems don't change overnight. Like, they take a while to climb out of. So, this is an area I want to get into, or I've been doing, but, I want to get into it a lot more, at a different level. And then hand in glove with that, I'd like to do some, corporate and executive coaching, some leadership really work. Basically, have a look at companies now, they're running stuff, and then, so maybe just pull it apart a little bit. And also another component of that would be maybe put them under a little bit of, pressure and see. So one thing that the military does really well, which, no offense to the civilian world, doesn't do, is we exercise.
Yes.
So for example, in the counter-terrorism role, we would, it's a force of last resort. So you cannot fail. So when the Australian Army's counter-terrorism unit gets called up, there's no one else can be called after you. So it's almost irrelevant. Like, you must succeed. I can't stress that enough. Yes, that's why it's called the force.
Can't call the police or.
Well,
they've called the army. The army's called you.
So
you're the it.
You're it.
So
I hinge on that mindset a lot, and coming back to the exercise piece. So if we look at, for example, your business, the little I know about it, but after talking to Josh and yourself a little bit today, and JP and Andrew, is, if you did an exercise here, so maybe, the example, we're using, how COVID's happened, and, you've had to, not diversify, but, you've changed your tact a little bit, might be accurate, with what you got coming up at Conagra. So if you use that as an example, and then if you got someone to exercise that scenario, well, what if that goes wrong? Now, I'm sure you've done your own risk assessment, but you can imagine like what we do in the military is just sit around the table and you put all the facts on the table, and you have someone literally just like, trying to destroy your plan.
Right. Yeah.
So you're like, oh, we should get this signed by Christmas. Well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like how much have you got to invest in there? How much can you hold on?
Yeah.
And then they just pass some new bylaw or whatever in this council. You can't develop now over two, whatever it is. You get the point.
What do you do? Yeah.
And we just keep throwing these things in, and you're like, hang on. So, as I was saying, in the military, we exercise things and we flesh them out, and we'll start it on a table, and then for us it's easy, because we can go to a building and play Cowboys and Indians. For you, with the scenario we're giving, it's difficult, but you get the point. Yeah. So you would go through those scenarios. So I think there's a lot of potential with some companies certainly to do that, as in to war game. What if you were attacked now?
Yeah.
An attack doesn't need to be a direct attack. Physical. Attack can be anything. Attack can be the weather. Attack. You can get. Yeah. What if your two nightclubs down here get flooded next week, or there's a cyclone?
Yeah.
Like, what's your plan?
Right.
And people often you'll find then straight away are literally like, well, hang on, we don't have we're not going to get cyclone that's going to destroy that. Well, that's happened before.
Yeah. They don't think ahead.
Yeah. So that's one component of it. And then the probably the third prong is doing some keynote speaking. So just anything where large or small, where often most companies, firms, and organisations, will have like an annual or biannual trip they'll do somewhere where they just want to reset everything, and they have think tanks and working groups. So one to assist and input in those as an outsider, just to listen and make observations, and then maybe add some additional commentary, and then as well, at the start, middle, and or end, however that would to work, to speak to them and pass on some experiences and hard lessons that we've learned in the special operations community, which a lot of it can very much transfer into the corporate executive world and different businesses and organisations.
Wow, that's awesome. I think all the audiences would like to know what's the best way to reach out to you if they want to make an appointment, prior to maybe Christmas time. Is it social media or
I was going to give them your phone number.
Sure, no problem. I'll make an appointment for you.
No, as I said, unfortunately, I'm still building the website at the moment, but they can find me on Instagram.
Okay, we're going to have it down below.
Which is
we'll tag that down.
Which is at 7 horses, at 7.horses.co. So at 7.
We'll write that in there.
Okay, we're gonna add that into.
That's easy. We'll actually write in the comments now on our Instagram. If you want to tag that in.
If anyone wants to reach out to Wes,
I do. Okay.
They need to book early. Otherwise, Wes would be booked out.
Yeah. You know what? I just had a bit of a brainstorm then when you were talking. You know what we should involve Wes with? You know how we were going to do obviously we were going to do a bit of how this all came about was we were going to do a TV show very similar to Shark Tank, but with a bit of a different twist to it, and a bit of youth into the whole thing. So. Part of our plan was to get people on that didn't have the backing for businesses, to hear them out, listen to a great idea, either fund them ourselves or possibly buy out their idea for a cash sum, and they would have that choice at the end of if they were chosen. What we could also, and that'll
make a great reality
TV show.
And I've got another great idea, but I have to get you signed an NDA before I got it. But seriously, I really want to talk about another idea for reality TV, which is ironically, and I was thinking of it, I've been thinking about it for a little while, and it's funny you just say that, Andrew, because I was thinking about it on the way down here. Because it just needs the input and let's get it up. And without stealing your thunder, if you look at SAS Australia at the moment, booming charts. I'm not talking about a program or anything like that. I'm talking. We'll just say putting a special forces tone into some business stuff like you were saying.
That's what I'm about to say.
Exactly.
So when we were speaking about it, I said to the boys, we should really put the people to the test, because I wanted to be able to say, if we're going to back someone, we'd obviously have a crowd of investors. If we're going to back someone with $1 million or $500,000 or even $100,000 or even $100, we want to make sure they have what it takes to weather any storm and to not give up on us, okay? Because we're investing the money into it. So I said to the guys, it'd be great to put them through SAS training or that type to really test if they've got what it takes to actually even be in business, because a lot of these people may not have been funded previously because they didn't actually have what it took to run a company or a business. They just had a good idea. So with that sort of system where we could possibly involve you, you could obviously, do that, psychological analysis with them, as well as the training analysis with them, the exercising, and then that would give us those, it might give us those final ticks on whether to fund their idea or to purchase their idea or to let the idea go.
Yeah, so you raised a heap of excellent points there, and and this is why I keep going back to mindset. I can give someone $100,000.
Yeah.
And to launch or start, I can't actually right now for the record, but anyway.
You got to get a lot more DMs.
to launch or start something, the point is, people, how do I word it? So when you see someone who's a quite established business, let's look at your office, if you don't mind. So, you walk in here and it's quite, and for the audience, this is a very impressive space. It's well thought out. It's inviting. It's not too over the top, and I'm just being very frank. But it's a very nice space, and it says success, but in a little bit of a humble way, but also lets you know. And I'm just being really honest. So, what's the point? Well, I know straight away that to get to here, it takes a lot. That there are a lot of associated stresses, that there are a lot of this and a lot of that. And I think there is there's a lot of culture out there that, entrepreneurs, as they all like to call themselves, no offense, but, it's kind of like, what have you really done yet or what have you achieved? And I'm not being derogatory or taking anything away from those people. Importantly though, the point I'm making is, once you get to a point, of relative success, that's often all that people see. Even if you look at even if you look at some of the young female Instagram models. I have a look at their pages, and people, some people might, on first glance go, well, all she's doing is, walking around in bikinis and doing this and doing that. However, to get 100, 200,000 followers, because there's 1 million of these girls doing it, you actually need to be really savvy. And those pictures and your tags and your profile, etc. And it takes, it may take you 5, 6, 7 years to get 10,000 followers. It's going to take you then, it's all disproportionate, if that makes sense. It might only take another year or two and you might have 50,000. The point being, when someone sees them with 100,000 followers, and it's not all about followers, I'm just using this as an example, people are like, oh, she's just doing this and doing that. It's like, do you know how many times she sat in a room and cried? How many times she or he has been broke, or how many times they've had to borrow money to get, just some good photography done and content, as they call it. And these are the things that people don't realise. So I think it's a great point, and a good little idea that we should develop and explore, Andrew. That to stress test, for want of a better term, people who want to get into business or want to get past a stage. So maybe they're at it's not a real culminating point, but they feel they're at this culminating point, as in they've been sitting somewhere for a few months in some sort of point of stagnation, or whatever word you want to use. How do we now get them from where they are in, moving again?
And most importantly, making sure they're not just an ideas man, they're actually a tactical person and a strategic person that can follow through on an idea. It's like saying I can go out and shoot a gun at war, and then there's another thing going out. I can't shoot a war. I can't shoot. I got a 308 Remington. I got a CZ Shadow 2 handgun. But I definitely not at war. That's for sure. I think my furthest shot's about 100. My furthest shot's about 120 meters actually down at.
Just for the audience, he's pulling all these weapons up now onto the table.
Touching on what you said, Andy, like a lot of our followers and friends and stuff, they're in that younger demographic, and let's face it, a lot of people online are also in that younger demographic. So that's why we wanted to target those younger people with that idea as well, because there's more people that are going to watch it, more people are going to pay for it as well.
Yeah.
I guess with your experience as well, like you've probably worked with a lot of younger people in the army. Like what advice, I guess, can you give younger people who are struggling with their mindset, whether they're leaving school and they don't know what to do? That's a big problem I see with a lot of friends and stuff like that. Or they might have gone through a breakup, they don't know who to talk to. Like what advice can you maybe give some younger people?
Yeah, so fantastic questions. I think the first thing I would say, so I do counsel a few younger people. I think and when I say we, there's no one in this room that's old, but when you're talking about people that are of late teens or early 20s, I think we take for granted how much pressure there, or not take for granted, I think we don't understand the associated pressures of youth nowadays. I think because of social media, and we can all say, I'll turn it off. But, again, I'm very real world. So to say to someone, oh, don't do that, that's not actually good advice or counselling. Because if they're doing it, it's really easy to say you want to get them to undo it. So it's quite habitual and it's routine. So I think the young people are under an immense amount of pressure. And where does that pressure come from? And which leads me to my first point. I think the first thing they need to do or understand and work hard at is cutting out the white noise, as we call it. So I think there's just so much stuff coming in. It'd be like me coming in here and being like getting quite intimidated, which I'm not, but I'm like, this is a beautiful environment. These guys are clearly very successful. So that doesn't affect me because I have a developed mindset. But you can imagine someone else coming in here and they're like, oh my God, and they literally, it actually puts them off target. And now we can use that. That's why there's a term called power dressing. That's why all these terms exist. We need to use these things in higher end business to achieve aims in that. We all know that, especially the people in this room. But I think the youth are just under so many other pressures. So first and foremost, cut that white noise out. And I know it's not that easy. And what I mean by that again is, you really need to narrow down everything from, what do you want to do? What's important to you? Your friends. I think they are, in too many circumstances, they're trying to please and be accepted by such a wide and diverse group. Well, we know now, at our ages, that just doesn't happen. Whereas, when at their ages, it's so like, hey, why haven't I got, why can't I afford the Nikes or the bag or the this or the that? Why am I getting likes on Instagram? Why has she got 500 more followers than me? Why has he got 7% body fat and I look chubby?
That's me.
I
always ask that question. Why do they have abs? Come on, man, it's summer today. Why did someone have to bring that up?
Love section.
We need to exercise.
So, just to close on that comment, I had a joke about abs, but there's a lot of stuff out there where, women are protecting and advocating young women, whereas that doesn't happen as much within the male, role models. And there's actual syndrome now where young males actually believe they need to have this, a six-pack or an eight-pack. They need to, they believe, because of, the front cover of Men's Health, Men's Sport and Fitness and all that you have these male models which got ridiculously low body fat percentages. So that's just like another thing. So when you put all these things together,
White noise.
White noise.
And it's increasing as well because you got, before you'd have a model that would get featured on the front of a magazine and that'd be a pretty well-known person. Now with Instagram being such a powerful platform, you have Joe Blow, who literally has not really done anything in his life, to be a celebrity. Now he is a celebrity because he's got 1 million people that follow him, times 1,000 people. Now all of a sudden you've got all these front page magazines. They're all edited, all photoshopped in, and it gives these poor kids misconception on what's right, what's wrong, and what they have to be. And 90% of Instagram 99% of Instagram is the highlights of your life. No one ever shows the bad days. And then on top of that, you've got the other 80% that are color graded, that are that have been presets have been put on to make all your eyes look blue and your skin look tan and your abs and all that sort of stuff. So you're dead right. The pressure's more and more and more and more increasing, definitely in the social media realm, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially for young people as well.
Yeah.
You just learn how to talk.
Yeah.
You want to fly.
Sweet as. We'll just do a swap over with the cameras. Oh, good stuff.
Well.
All right, JP, you're up.
All right,
it's your time to shine.
Hey, shit.
You've been shining the whole time.
Yeah, look at exactly. That's what I was going to say. The thing I really want to talk to you about, because I've always, my whole life growing up, I've always been all about mindset, and only because that's why I was really interested to talk to you, because I've spoken about it on the podcast before, but I don't get too much into detail because I don't like to share it too much. I was born in Nicaragua. You know who Nicaragua is? Yeah, Central America. I was born there, came to Australia when I was 7 years old, and you know what Latino families are like. They give the kids a good hiding. They deserve it. And,
So you came for it.
yeah. I've got
It's more defense. No, he's actually a white belt in karate. No, what belt are you? Yeah, what belt are you?
I kept mucking around with karate. I got up to brown 3, right? But then I stayed brown 3 for 10 years because I kept going. Yeah, because I kept going in and out. And Sensei's like, JP, you would have been a black belt like 10 years ago, mate. What's wrong with you? I said, Sensei, I don't do, and here's one of the reasons why I did karate. I said, I don't do karate for the belt and look at me, I'm a champion. I do it because it changed my life. That was the first thing that changed my life. Because just to go back a little bit, like obviously growing up, I had a really bad upbringing, like being sexually abused, physically abused, and mental abuse. Mental was the worst. I wanted to join the army so many fucking times. I went twice, and the first time I went, I was in grade 10. And when I approached there, they said, "Oh, you got to pass grade 10 English and maths." I failed everything in school because the mental abuse that I grew up with was unbelievable. You know what I mean? Unbelievable. Destroyed me as a person. Being told. Yeah, I know what I mean. Because it's so bad. It's like growing up as a kid, I was always told, you're a piece of shit. You always will be a piece of shit. You're a scumbag. I don't love you. Blah blah. Everything. Just as a little kid, my whole entire life. So I never gave a shit about life. I never gave a shit about school. I didn't care about passing anything. I'll go to school, my teacher will be like, "Oh, where's your assignments, JP? Where's your homework?" I'm like, "Do I look like I give a fuck? Like, just fail me, man. I don't give a shit. Just do what you got to do." And that's why I really went to try and join the army. And I was born in 80, so when I was trying to join the army, it would have been 96. You know what I mean? That's why I tried to get in. And then they said, you got to pass grade 10 English and maths. That's when it got funny, right? And I'm like, oh, fuck, what do I got to do? Go back and pass. I'm like, oh, fuck that. I didn't bother. But that's when I gave up on myself, you know what I mean? Because my mindset was so weak. I never believed in myself. I don't think I can achieve anything in life because that's how I was programmed, in my head. And then later on in life, when I was about 30, 32, I tried to go in again. But I wanted to go in infantry because I really wanted to get into it. But they were going to put me as a gunner. And I said, fuck that, mate. The gunner's the first one they get. Take it out. That's the last person I'm going to be. I'd rather be on the floor. If I get killed, I get killed, or whatever. But the thing that I really, like about this is because all that abuse through my life, right, it fucked me up. I couldn't get anywhere in life. I've failed everything in life. I've always had a mind, though, that I know I can achieve a lot more than I can. But all these beliefs of how it was programmed into my head, it was just so hard for me to push through that. Saw counselors, saw psychiatrists. I'm not putting them down in any way. They did absolutely nothing for me, but just fucking pissed me off. They did nothing. They wanted to feed me with drugs. Here's antidepressants. I just say, shove that shit up your ass. I'm not taking that. There's no fucking way in the world I'm taking that. So
I didn't know we could swear on this thing.
oh yeah.
You can say whatever you want. Just to be clear, normally I'm the one who swears.
And just to be clear as well, you can actually take those drugs up your ass.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So it's quite ironic that you're saying, I'll shove it in my ass. You actually can. Know that now.
So they always kept on trying to feed
Key
me that
takeaways.
shit. They always kept on trying to feed me that shit. But I always believed that your mind is the most powerful thing in the world. And if I can just learn how to control it and just get rid of all that pain, I'd be able to move forward. And like I said, after all those years of doing that shit, I finally, I thought, you know what, why don't I give hypnotherapy a go? And mate, I gave that a go. It totally 100% changed my fucking life. I literally did a flip of who the person I was. I used to be a person with a lot of anger, temper, like you wouldn't want to be anywhere near me. I'm very friendly, soft and nice, but as soon as I trigger, I lose my mind. That's how I used to be. And I knew that wasn't me, deep down inside of my heart, but I knew my mindset had to change. And I always thought, it's hard to try and change your mindset, for me anyway, when I was that damaged. You know what I mean? I tried to do the right thing, but I came back. I tried to do the right thing, but I come back to being the same person. And it wasn't until I saw hypnotherapy to get rid of all that emotional pain attached to everything I had. It's like I always say to my partner and a lot of my friends, I'm 40 now, right? I've lived 35 years of just fucking depression, heartache, and every single day of my life, all I wanted to do was just kill myself every day. The only reason why I never did is because, I brought up a good boy, Catholic boy, and you know how it is, Jesus and all that sort of stuff. And that's the only reason why I never, ever killed myself. But I nearly attempted it once when I was 10 years old. But ever since then, I've always wished for it, always wanted to do it. Never did it because of my religion, sort of thing. So that's, I guess, the only thing that kept me alive, to be honest with you. After 35, I finally got all that help through hypnosis, and I've lived 5 years of peace, finally, in my head. I'm at peace and everything's great. But now what I really like to learn from you is, as I feel finally at peace with everything that's happened to me and I don't care anymore, I've moved on, I'm more happier now, I'm a different person I've ever been in my life, is I still have the self-doubt, you know what I mean? And I try and push through it. I believe in myself that I can do shit, but when it gets hard or something, I push through it harder, and then eventually my old ways come back again and go, just don't worry about it, man. Just do something else.
So you know what's funny, JP?
What?
No. So, mate, that was, I want to make a couple of points, and I think they're really, really important. Is first of all, as I alluded to a minute ago or a few minutes ago, we've got too much of a in the male society, too much of a cultural ingrain of us being vulnerable. So as part of some of the work that I've been doing and want to do, I've developed a saying, and it's vulnerable is the new tough. And I think you just demonstrated, mate, that you're actually fucking tough. Mm-hmm. And we need to take stock of that. And I know sometimes compliments, I don't know you that well, straight up. But compliments, like us types, as in a standard, whatever the hell that is nowadays, alpha male, like if you start giving me compliments, I don't like them. I'll tell you straight up. As you were saying that, you would have saw me in the audience can't, but I was on my phone and I was looking for something because I knew I preempted sort of where you were going a little bit. So I posted a thing today from a site. So the first quote's off a psychologist, and he says, the more anti-fragile you become, so anti-fragile, so the more work you do on not being fragile, the more you'll be able to not just handle anything that comes your way, you'll also be able to thrive no matter what. And then my commentary is, you're too fragile, then get to the roots and the cause, and you've got to do the work. If you want strong legs, what do? You fucking squat. Yes. So what have you done this week for your mind? So when you ask me, how do I work on those vulnerabilities? And mate, I'm not the best practitioner in the world, But this is the thing, is we don't do the fucking work. No one wants to do the mindset work. You know, like this, one of the strongest mindsets and level-headedness I've been was when I did religiously 3 to 4 sessions of Bikram yoga, so the 90-minute heat stuff, Bikram yoga a week, and I'd never touched it before in my life. I did that for 12 months. And I was just like a different person, man. There's just like nothing could come near me. I literally felt like that walking around, you know, and I let that go. And, you know, we all make excuses about time and stuff. But, you know, coming back to, you know, I think what was your main point there, you know, like how do we, well, I don't think, you know, we can ever completely disregard or get rid of something out of our mind. And that in itself is important to acknowledge. So what do we do? And it comes back to the thing, we've got to do the work. And again, and this is what I try and do when I'm coaching and talking, as I think, you know, I'd be picking the vibe up on, is trying, because this is what other people don't do. They make things so technical. You know, so let's simplify it. You want fucking strong legs, JP, what do? You go and squat. You fucking squat. So how do you get a strong mind? Well, you see counselling, you do spiritual healing, you do psychology work, you do all these little things, just like when you're at the fucking gym and you want those fucking legs like drumsticks.
And that's exactly what I did, because I tried everything I could, and it wasn't until I finally found hypnosis, just totally different person. And then I actually went and did the course myself to become a hypnotherapist myself. Because I just thought, fuck, this thing just changed my fucking life. I'm totally 180 different person. And when it was I broke up with my ex before the one I was with, and I was very violent, you know, temper person, very bad. And when I broke up with her, you know, I just sat there and went, fuck me, like this is not me, and I can't be doing this shit. Then I started going with my partner I'm with now. I've been with her for 7 years, and we were together for probably about 6 months in, and I snapped at her. But before I snapped at her, I try to always make a conscious effort. Remember, JP, remember what you're like. You got to. I always had to coach myself and work myself to not be that person anymore. But then just automatically, because that's who I've been programmed to be in the past, I just snapped and lost my shit at her. And then when I did it, I went, no, I can't.
Do you know why we do that? Because it always comes back. I'm not a psychologist, right? But it comes back to that, and also what happened in our childhood. So I'm a trauma baby. So when I say this, I don't say it in a derogatory. I'm a trauma baby, not excessive trauma, and nowhere near the trauma like that you said. Yeah, my parents separated, and a couple other things happened. So nowhere near the level of some of the things you described. But the reason you have those things, and that's what, you know, my thing is, you go back to the roots. You know, always isolate the cause. It comes back to even Josh's question. I've got all these things going on. I don't know what to do. Hang on, stop, man, stop. You know, what do you want to do? And just strip it right back, because if we, you know, if you look out this window here and look across that valley, like, what do you see? Like a fucking 1,000 things, right?
I saw a dot on the horizon.
I saw a fucking dot on the horizon.
I see it too.
So Andrew's the teacher's pet. But then if we look out the window and I say, look at that boat there, everyone will look at that boat and you can see that boat. And again, it's just a simple analogy where, you know, like, it's busy out there. Well, guess where it's the busiest? In here. And like, there's still so much we're learning about mindset. I mean, what comes out of the back of your brain, a big cord, goes through the nervous system. So people used to think, oh, this stuff's weird. You know, when I do some, you know, needling or something on your little toe, well, how can that, you know, affect this part of the brain or whatever? Like, and I'm not necessarily categorically for the scientists out there saying that it does. The point of the matter is, everything comes back through there and feeds up through that cord into that grey matter. That is governing everything. Our moods, man, our chemicals, like our hormone, like everything is governed by that. And what do we do the least amount of fucking work on? Our fucking brains, our mindset, our minds. You know, we work on everything else other than that.
The thing is as well, like, when you talk about mindset training and, you know, becoming a stronger person in the head and whatnot, it's funny because you're trying to train something that's obviously quite weak, you know, or that you think that it's weak, and that's why you're wanting to train it. So it's like wanting to train legs when your legs are extremely fatigued and you can barely walk. And then, you know, pulling yourself to go to the gym, get those squats done. Because you know that you've got chicken legs, or you know that you need to grow your legs. And I think that's maybe why a lot of people struggle with mindset training and you know, getting into that motivational side, is because they're exhausted. And, you know, most people don't go, you know, I want to go home and I want to fucking read a book. I want to better myself. I want to go home and I want to watch a YouTube series on a craft that I want to master. 9 times out of 10, happy people and people that are in a positive mindset and that are succeeding normally don't think to keep training and to get better. It's normally when you're on your knees, you're bleeding, is when you go, fuck, you know what? I really need to get smarter here. I really need to overcome some of the adversity that I've had in my life. I really need to figure out a way to be better. And it's hard, you know, I see it everywhere. I see everyone wants the shiny things. Everyone wants the better things in life, but they're really not willing to do whatever it takes to get there. You need to 100% want the thing better than you want to breathe. And then once that's my biggest situation, get to that point where it's the last cup of water and you're about to die of thirst, you know, when you get to that level of need, that's when you'll really make a pivotal point and turn. And I think it's getting thirsty enough, you know, to go into that action sort of thing. But it's funny that, you know, when you say about all that mindset training, because it's so true. You never want to do any mindset training until you need to.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And one of the biggest, and that's an excellent couple of points you raised there, Andrew. One of the biggest things, and certainly something that I'm a strong advocate with in the veteran community, is, is when people say things like, well, you know, just go and see someone, or why didn't you call me, or hey, start the gym again, or, you know, stop taking those, you know, drugs and going out partying, or limit what you're drinking or whatever. So when you're in that mindset, like, so when anybody makes a comment like that to me, straight away, all I say inside my head is, you have no fucking idea about mental health. Because when you're in that mindset,
it's the end result of something.
I'm the most motivated person around. You know what I mean? When I have no time in the day, I'll get up at 3:30 in the morning and train. All right? I've gone through, I'll admit, some bouts where I've been depressed, and when I've used the incorrect coping mechanisms to get over things.
Of course.
And when I'm in those stages, and people are like, you know, why didn't you answer your phone when I didn't ring someone back or whatever? I just look, I'm like, fuck me. I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. Like, you worry about me answering my phone. You know what I mean?
You're
and that's
dead
not
right.
me.
And it's the end result. Like, you're taking those drugs, you're partying, you're doing the wrong things that people perceive as being the wrong thing in life, as an end result of something that's happened.
Exactly.
You know, it's not you're doing that and it's causing the issues. You're doing that because of something that's happened, or you're going through something in your life that's causing you to make those actions.
Coping mechanism.
That aren't
we do
normal
things.
things.
Exactly. We do things to cope.
Exactly.
And you know, what are coping mechanisms? I mean, they can be wide and varied. And oh, by the way,
Chocolate,
you know,
sugar,
coping,
everything.
but also coping mechanism can be something adversely healthy. People, you see, there's people in the gym that are overtraining, and you see them in there like every day, like, oh my God, what's wrong? Okay, fucking coping mechanism. You know, and we've all done it. I'm assuming, looking around. So, you know, it's not just, hey, I'm using. You know, there's not just bad, you know, people look at alcohol or drugs or, you know, relationships, as in they'll get in toxic relationships, or fast cars or these things as coping mechanisms, and like, they're bad. You can have healthy ones as well. A lot of people develop eating disorders. A lot of people overwork. You know, they'll do 60, 80 hours work week. Oh, no, I've got no time for that. I'm busy. You're fucking coping. So, you know, we need to be a lot more aware of what actually is a coping mechanism, because we seem to, in my experience, we seem to always categorize coping mechanisms over here on the right. Like, you're going out a little bit much, Josh. You know, I see you drinking and you're a little bit JP. But over here, I'm fine because I work 80 hours a week and I train 4 hours a day. No. Okay, so it's just a point to make, because I think the coping mechanisms go across the whole
100%.
spectrum. They're not just what we may consider to be.
100% correct. And it comes down to having an understanding. Even if you don't understand, just have an understanding of that person. Like I've had other friends say, hey man, have you spoken to blah, blah, blah? He's out of control. He's fucking taking drugs, taking this. I said, yeah, look, I understand what he's doing and I understand why he's doing it. Just give him some time. I'll look after him and just make sure I'm there for him. That's all he needs. I just need to be there for him and let him know that I'm his mate. I got his back and I'm there for him. He's all good. Just fucking, I got him. It's all good.
And as you said, it's a coping mechanism. You're coping with something that's happened, and it's better someone coping than not coping.
Exactly.
Yeah, you get me?
And that's a brilliant point, mate. I'd rather sit there, and I'm not encouraging this or endorsing it, but I have been with close friends where I know they're coping, I know they're going through a horrible moment, and you know what, I've joined them. Because I'm like, if I'm here, nothing's going to happen, and I'm not endorsing that or saying that's the best behaviour in the world. But what you said then, Andrew, is put it this way: for me to sit at home and go, what they're doing is so, and from more of a, stand back, judgmental perspective, what I do categorically know, that doesn't work, and that, you know what I mean. Whereas if you're sitting beside that person, you don't need to be using coping mechanisms with them, but you get the point. I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch on some more of your background, and I resonate really well with stories. So if there's something that you can maybe share with the audience that is a story that you've experienced and something that you've learnt from that someone watching can also take some advice from that.
That's another really good question, mate. You've only asked two, and they've both been brilliant.
Andrew most of the time asks most of the questions.
I think, these are some things. I'll be honest. I've clocked up a dozen or so podcasts now. I don't think I mentioned some of these things. I went through a really insecure stage. When I was probably through my mid-teens. My mother had remarried to my stepfather. We didn't ever have a lot of money. In fact, you'd say we were sort of under that line of whatever normal is. So I used to get teased a lot about certain things I'd wear. I used to get teased a lot about my body shape, believe it or not. Because at the time I was a little bit, chubby, and so the only shoes that we could afford when other people were wearing nice sneakers, I had to wear hand-me-down black leather shoes, which I used to find ways like getting tar and stuff off the road to make them look a bit polished, because we couldn't afford polish. So I got to a stage, and I was quite young, and we've spoken a little bit about the youth here tonight and the pressures they're under. So I guess my message to you is, you've really got to, and I know it's hard, I know it's fucking hard, and I do know, but you've really got to believe in yourself. And when you're in those circumstances, as in, you're young and you might think that things are really bad, and that things are, that you're not the popular kid, or that things might not be recoverable. And again, as we mentioned earlier, you're looking at things, especially now. I wasn't in my era, but you are now looking at social medias and stuff. And, I look back at some of the thoughts I had then about my own worth, which I'll admit were quite low. And then I look at, what I did and what I became. And I still consider myself, and I mean this in the most humbling, earnest way, I still consider myself, another guy, so to speak. I don't consider myself to be some fucking rock star or anything of anything like that, or arrogant or about it all. But, I look back at how my mindset was then and what I thought of myself, and basically I didn't think I'd ever be able to be what I wanted to be, and I knew then I wanted to join the military, and I just really sort of focused on, and I remember there, for whether it was weeks on end or months on end or on and off over a year, being quite kind of upset about everything, as in I wasn't one of the cool kids, and I wasn't when I was young. And then I don't know what happened, to be honest, but when I was about 16 or something, I just went, fuck this shit, and I fell in love with the gym. And I started training. And to put that in perspective, at the time I was living in a little coastal town called Bargara. So it's 15 or 20 kilometres away from Bundaberg.
Yeah.
So we're talking, where are we now? A couple of hours from here. And there was the gym owner, I couldn't afford gym membership. And so he sort of just, I don't know what happened. Well, I do now because I can see as I'm older, but he basically let me go to his gym, and he'd give me a protein shake and give me a banana, and basically just started building me up.
Yeah.
And then he said, you should go into competitions. And I was like, oh, fuck, mate, I'm not gonna, And he said, and back then there wasn't all the different degrees of body sculpting and this and that there is now. It was really just bodybuilding and bodybuilding. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of time in the gym, and that became my coping mechanism. And I used to hitchhike back to Bargara because no one was there to pick me up. So you just picture as a 16-year-old kid, I was standing on the side of the road with a thumb out, like 3 or 4 nights a week to get home. Mum would come and pick me up sometimes, and I'm not saying anything against my mother. It was just that was the way it was, So yeah, I guess that's the story, Josh, and I just built on there. And I guess once I started to feel strong, and weight training does, and this is scientifically proven, does help with your mental strength and resilience. So I think looking back at it retrospectively, what started to occur was as I built strength, I felt stronger and more confident. When people would be bullying me, that they might get an adverse effect. I don't condone fighting, but I'm just saying I learned how to defend myself pretty fast, and people stopped having a go at me. And then there was less for them to have a go at me about. And then, like I always wanted to join the military, but I remember through that period there, my mind just changed. I started standing up to certain things that were happening at home with my stepfather. I think that's, when we look back, you might remember, when you're a lot younger than me, but when you're 20, you think you know everything. When you're 25, you think I'm still learning stuff now. I really don't think the coin cracks until sort of you've been around, for quite a few years. But yeah, I think that was a significant, definite change for me. And I guess that's all I'd say to, anyone for that matter. It doesn't matter whether you're of age or younger. That you need, that at the end of the day, put it this way to simplify things, you are the only person that can pull you out of anything. Everything else in this fucking world, you can have good friends around you. You can have all the money in the world, you can have all the assets in the world, you can have the best girlfriends, wives, family, whatever, but like when you need to do something, you need to do it. But that, as we were saying before, isn't as simple as it sounds sometimes, and I'm aware of that. But I guess what I'm saying is, you need to make those first steps, and if that is you asking for help to help with those things, or changing something in your lifestyle or pattern, you are the only fucking one that can do them.
100%. That's what went through my mind as well. Well, I said, fuck, man, I'm in so much shit inside my head. The only person who's going to get me out of this is me. I prayed. I asked my girlfriend at the time, help me. Don't do this, don't do that. It's like I searched for everybody else to help me. And then it got to the point where nah, fuck that. I got to do this for myself. Yeah. So that's when I clicked.
You're by yourself when you're born, and you're by yourself when you die, and the whole way through as well. And that's why it's so important, as you said, mindset training is like the number one thing that you can do, because it all starts from up top.
Absolutely. Well, my question to you, Wes, is that I think most of the people ask you about how they can improve their lives, what sort of mindset they should have to improve themselves. But I'm going to ask a question that a lot of the audiences might be thinking of. What had them done wrong? So can you give some advices as to like if someone has a bad mindset, what should they stop thinking of? For example, like I should stop thinking of suiciding. I should stop thinking of being lazy. What sort of advice would you give these people before they can become better? They should correct their own self weaknesses.
Yeah. So first of all, and I know you don't mean it like this. We shouldn't use the word weakness.
Okay.
But I know you don't mean it like that. But I just want to make that note up front.
Okay. Yeah.
Because again, the importance of us in the man world of being vulnerable. So we need to be careful in the words that we use. And like I said, I know you didn't mean it literally, so I won't labour on it. But we just need to be careful of that.
Yeah, of course.
Look, I don't think there's any single turnkey approach. So I know your question, but it's quite difficult to answer. I think. We need to go back to some of our other conversation points, and I think we need to use another analogy. I don't know if they're sick of analogies yet.
I love your analogies.
We use another analogy is the golf bag approach.
Okay. Yep.
No, I don't play golf,
Okay.
but we actually used to use this a lot, believe it or not, in the counter-terrorism world.
Oh.
And I was like, so, do you play golf?
Yeah. I do.
So you understand all the different types of golf clubs.
Yeah, of course. Driver.
So I actually don't understand that, but obviously I can relate to the analogy, and that is that. So when we're looking at someone, as you said, is having suicidal ideology, or they're thinking or doing this, and just for the audience, suicide ideology is the idea that your mind is thinking of it. So it doesn't mean you're going to do it. It's not a good sign that you're thinking about it, but it doesn't mean you've tried to do it. There are other categories and other stages. So this is just the first, that you're having suicidal ideologies. Obviously, or not obviously, but it is a red flag. But again, and importantly, you are very much at a point of total recoverability, or to be totally recoverable, if you're having any of those thoughts. So coming back to your question, the golf bag analogy is, we've got so many different variations on the golf course. Each of them requires, a different amount of energy to be put behind that swing. A different type of golf club. There's thousands of things, as you know, going on. So when we have ailments in our head of mental health concerns or negativity, then we need to go to the golf bag. And what I mean by that is, okay, I'm feeling depressed because of whatever. Okay, so again, try and isolate things. And when you isolate them, we try and attack things, in some sort of priority order. And again, that's probably sort of getting a little bit out of my pay grade, and there's some psychologists on here probably squirming right now. But the fact of the matter remains that when people, are feeling, depressed, are feeling, dark, and you hear these terms, dark, very clouded, I'm feeling heavy, I'm feeling like I'm drowning. So people will express their mindset in those terms. So when you are feeling any of those aforementioned terms, your ability to see clearly is clouded, foggy, heavy, etc., because you're looking through the lens that you're looking through is directly relevant to the mindset at the time. So again, it's very difficult for you to, so that's what I say, to navigate out of that as self, which is hard. We really need to try and isolate certain components and then try and fix a thing at a time. I have another simple example that most of the time, there's pretty well 3 or 4 things that are affecting someone's life. And when there's all 3 or 4, that's when you become, I can't deal with this anymore. Similarly, finances,
That's one of the
relationships, something to do with work, or a health thing. So, for example, extremely sadly, a New South Wales police officer shot himself yesterday morning or the morning before at work.
Sorry.
And respects to his family and friends. However, I it's important that we talk about these things and that we put them on the table, as opposed to not talk about them because they're sensitive. I think that has put us in the wider predicament that we're in, because let's not talk about that, it might upset someone. Let's not talk about that because it's sensitive. Well, what I do know categorically is that hasn't fucking helped.
Yes.
So when you look at these things, and I did digress there a little bit, but to come back, we need to try and isolate those things. And when you're doing them on your own, it's extremely difficult, as I was saying, to look through the murky water, to look through the heaviness, to look through that. But if you can pick just one thing, and as I was alluding to, when you've got finances, relationships, health, or your job, any one of these, let alone a combination of them, you need to work on improving just one thing at a time. And you may not be able, you may not even be able to tackle one of those things. So what you should do then is just work on a small thing, as we say, baby steps. So, and we've said it before, and I'm not contradicting myself, but to get yourself out of that house for a day and to walk around the block. Now, that may sound to some people like, what's he talking about? But the people that are listening, that have suffered depression, they know fucking exactly what I'm talking about. Leaving the house, walking around the block, you can easily get to a stage where that is a feat. You look at myself, you put me in a couple of helicopters with 20 other guys and say, hey, we're going to fly into that valley, and there's 100 or 150 Taliban in there that are trying to kill me. And I get on the helicopter, I don't even blink at it. And then next minute, 4 years later, I'm sitting in my lounge room and I'm scared to go to the fucking 7-Eleven. So that's where, I know the mindset. That thing, can be the biggest, darkest, baddest fucking voice, mate. And it's paralyzing.
On that topic, like that story about coming in the helicopter, to probably wrap it up, what is the most interesting, craziest story that you got for us of you and Judy? I'm talking the one that really sticks out for you, that gets the hairs up on the arm.
So that's pretty easy for me. So I'm one of very few people who have survived a helicopter crash.
Oh shit!
So in 2006, sorry, the date escapes me. But anyway, it's relevant, but it's not. So in 2006, I was working with a US, very, very high-end special ops task group. For the audience, what does that mean? The United States has so many tiers of special forces and special operations. I was embedded in the task force that links direct back to, is essentially a swing arm of the Minister of Defence, or SecDef, sorry, the Secretary, working on the strategic missions of the United States of America. So that is our number one target, was Osama bin Laden. So the persons who, the teams that in later years shot and killed on the infamous raid that most people are aware of now, Osama bin Laden, that was the crew that I was with for several months. So we came off a target, as it's referred to. We'd killed and captured all persons that were assigned to do so. We'd got counter-attacked, so that is when a force outside of the direct compound that we're in, because when you're in the compounds and areas that have people of the level we're talking about, so high-ranking Al-Qaeda officials, there was a group nearby, which there always is, to protect them. So there was quite a skirmish with those people. Once that was resolved, we called the helicopters in. And then once the helicopters come in, and there were two MH, which is the special ops variation of the Chinook. For the audience, that is that big helicopter with the 2 big rotor blades. So quite a beast, been around for a long time, but many more advanced models and stages of it now. So the special ops version has a little bit more power, self-fueling tanks, healing tanks, as in when the fuel tanks are shot out, and a little bit more armour and a few other things. Anyway, those 2 jets, as they're referred to, came in and landed right basically on the compound, and we ran out to them. And as we got on them, and normally this wouldn't happen, and I'll explain why it did happen afterwards, as in when you're working at this level, you have many different planes and assets above you, as you would see in the movies, watching what we're doing. And then we've got helmet cam and all these other things feeding back. So there's 300 people sitting in, like an operations centre.
Really?
Monitoring,
300
for 20 of us.
Far out.
Watching and monitoring
Every angle.
every move.
Wow. And are they constantly in communication with you?
No, because they know not to. It's
you gotta have leaders.
It's a good question, but they know not to do that.
Of course.
But if they need to, some of them can, not all of them, or it'll just be
Like they can see someone.
But we have a little bone
mic.
mic, so it's like half a fingernail embedded in your ear here.
Yep.
So those ears we have over there, they're for bionic hearing. So
Right.
they pull sound in and protect our ear.
Yeah.
They're not what a lot of people think. They're not like your inner ear.
Yeah.
That's a tiny little thing. So when I speak, because if you understand how the ear canal works, if you put this little bug in there, that's how it works anyway. So so we're quickly loading up, and all this happens quite quickly. So when you hear on the radio, you've got 1 minute. That means 1 minute. It comes back to some of the things we were talking about earlier with how our mindset can correlate into business. Like when I say give that to me in an hour or a day, it fucking means an hour a day, and our mindset, if that's not in an hour a day, it's catastrophic. This is a little bit alarmist, but that's how our mindset works. So when they say 1 minute, they are going to be within about 3 seconds of a minute. So you can picture that thing coming in at 120 knots under night vision goggles. All this work's done at night. Anyway, they land, so they skim over and they land like this across the compound. We run on as we always do. I was the last man on the second jet, as it's called. And as I got on, hearing things underneath the back of that jet, because the turbines come out the back, is quite severe. And then what I noticed, because I couldn't hear it, is the point was tracer rounds. So there's little light rounds, which is every third bullet, which has a magnesium burner in it. So you may have seen that movies when people see bullets as light. It's called a tracer round. So they'll be put in 1 every 5 or 1 every 7 or 1 every 3 into a machine gun, so you can see where it's going over night time. So that started coming about 30 foot or so over the blades. Then we boarded, and I'm like grabbing the loadmaster going, hey, you can't hear me, but I'm pointing like this because he hasn't got it. And just as I'm saying it, the cockpit has obviously relayed back to me because his body language totally fucking changed. So then we sat on the ground, and a lot of this I found out retrospectively. I didn't know at the time, but we had to do quite a large debrief because this cost us about $40 to $60 million. I can't remember the exact round amount. As the jets are sitting there, they wouldn't take off because they're trying to work out what the plan is and what's happening, because the assets are above are supposed to put fires directly onto them. So for the audience, and in short speak, it's as simple as there was a major communication breakdown at the most fucking critical and vulnerable time. That's the most simplest way I can put it. So they had no option then but to take off. So they coordinated that, saying with each other, again, which I learned retrospectively, that if we take off together, so they have 2 mini guns, which I strongly recommended Googling. They've got the highest rate of firepower of anything. They've got like 7 or 9 barrels, so they're firing that fast that would melt a single barrel. So one of those on the forward and aft, front and rear. So we had all of them, so all 8 of them out of 2 jets screaming until what they were called is Winchestered, which means out of ammunition. So we were on full thrust, as in full power. We went up and we were just getting hit from every single direction. At which stage we'd got to the ramp, so we're on a small tether, stropped on the floor, so we don't have any seating. We don't special ops don't work like that. We just strap in and so we a few of the guys pulled out the little round bubbles, which are on the side of the Chinook. So they've got a little thing where you can pop them out and they like discard. So you can shoot straight out of them. So by now, most people are trying to shoot out of those because we can see, obviously, under night vision goggles.
Yeah, okay.
And some other people are on the rear ramp. The ramp stays level, only for our operations. Normally they would close it.
Yeah.
So they'd gone to there and they were shooting. And basically, I don't know what altitude we'd gain. So
is this at full thrust?
Yeah, full thrust. So we're up at about...
That would be like...
We're up at about 1,000, 2,000 feet now. So we'd gained probably a good 1,000 odd feet anyway. Not 2,000, maybe 1,000 odd feet. We'd gained some good altitude. Jet 1 had sort of got away, had broken away from it. And then we got hit. So some of that heavy machine gun hit us. And you could sort of not feel it, but it's really hard to explain. And then what happened was we got hit by a couple of the RPGs, so the rocket projected grenades. So they hit us. And when they hit us, I just heard and felt, which may not be entirely accurate due to the trauma, distress of my own signalling to my brain. But basically that metallic, screaming, hydraulic, fucked up noise, that like shit ain't good now.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, and then the jet started to lose control.
Yeah.
So it wasn't spinning around because they have two rotors. So it was violently twisting to the left and right and contorting through the air, is how I describe it. I didn't know how many people on board were injured or what state people were. So most people had just tried to grab something. Now it's really every man for himself.
How many feet do you reckon you roughly would have been at? Like 2,000?
Yeah, 1,000 or so. I honestly don't know. So I just took a knee to get in the most stable position and held on as much as I could. Near my calf here, I carry a rescue knife to cut myself out. I took that out and I unfolded it, which retrospectively was a stupid move because the shock of impact was probably But I was just like, I got my fucking knife.
You finally survived and you got a knife in your stomach.
I'm going to crash. I'm going to cut myself out. I'm fucking good.
I'm fucking good.
So then, I took a knee and I've got my knife there and I'm literally fucking holding on. And you can't see, because you can't see out the windows, I can't see off the ramp.
He was in fight mode.
So I don't know like when or how I'm going to hit. And then, to be honest, I'm not that religious. I'm not religious. Is more accurate. I said a prayer to my family, and I said a prayer to some other people. And I said goodbye to them.
Yeah.
As far as I was concerned, there's just
no way.
No, people don't live helicopter crashes in Afghanistan.
And especially that sort of helicopter. So that's a big motherfucker.
It's like, and I don't know how many enemy are on the ground, but like...
and
that.
You're landing straight into your enemies.
You survived. Oh shit, no, you survived.
Yeah.
So, absolutely miraculously, and by chance, it was only due to the pilots, they were fighting it the whole way. But those Chinooks have got these massive hydraulic struts and huge wheels underneath them. All the helicopters have, but they're not directly down there. They work differently. Anyway, as it's contorting and twisting through the air, it's happened to land in a quite soft field, like it was like a cornfield, which was quite mature. And just at that last nanosecond like this, it's actually landed like that. So the hydraulics, even though the frame was fractured and we crash landed, if we landed on our side and it busted we'll put it this way, a couple of years later, the whole squadron I was with, so the special Navy Special Warfare, which known as Dev Group, so SEAL Team 6, which is open knowledge, as in that's common knowledge on the internet. So a few years later, the exact squadron I was with, Gold Squadron, Dev Group, they had a similar thing happen, and not one single person lived.
All right.
The whole squadron was fucking killed. And that's referred to as extortion 17. So we happened to all live.
Wow.
And the short story is we got out of the Chinook. We had a lot of enemy then coming in. They obviously knew where we'd landed, and we had a fight for a few good hours, and then another force come in and rescued us. And the jet that came in and rescued us got us out of there. It had 37 fucking holes in it by the time we got out.
Holy shit!
So it was a interesting few hours.
So you were obviously
that's my I don't know if that's my worst story or my best story. But there's your story, mate.
How good's that? Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you were obviously pretty far out there, not to be able to get like air support or anything like that, like for anything to fly in.
We had air support. All the air support we had is there's a term they say over the radio, and it's called Winchestered. So it means if they
Out
say,
of ammo.
Yeah, it says it out of ammo.
Yep.
So all the air support we had on station, which means right there and then,
Yeah.
within a half hour,
That you were getting attacked by them.
we're like Winchester. They're like they got, and then the second term they use, and that's the only reason why we hear it and they relay it to us, is the second term they use is bingo. So we don't need to hear anything else. If I hear Winchester, you got nothing fucking left good for me. And if I hear bingo, it means he's out of fuel. So all call signs above us, within an hour or two, come up Winchester, bingo. It means we're fucking done. We can't.
So no old school veterans obviously retire and play bingo then, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That would fucking hate to say. Shut the fuck up! Bingo! No!
I've never actually thought of that, but yeah.
That's just my fucked up brain.
No, you've just reminded me probably not to play fucking bingo. like ever.
Saves you some stress there.
It'll be the most catastrophic thing ever.
Thank you very much for coming on today's show, H. Epic. Like,
Yeah.
really cool.
Enjoyed the whole podcast throughout the whole time.
Definitely.
And on behalf of Australia, thank you very much for
your service.
serving for all of us. And we really appreciate you and what you've done and all your brothers and sisters that have served as well. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I really
We would
appreciate
like
it.
to offer you more drink, but you're gonna be driving. So.
Yeah. And we
Maybe when you come
definitely
back
will
next time. Yeah.
definitely will involve you with the TV show
Oh,
as well.
for sure.
Yeah, we'll,
For sure.
we'll have a chat about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
I'd love to talk more about those ideas. But no, thanks very much for having me on the podcast. I've really enjoyed it. Great bunch of people. It's good to just speak freely. I think really, really importantly, some of the issues we went over there in regards to mental health, that's what I'm all about, through all age groups and for things we need to, especially as the man fucking hood, we need to get a lot better at talking about that. And also, as I said, to do with the business, corporate, executive, all that stuff. Actually, every level. It's not even about that level. It doesn't matter whether you're in grade 3 playing soccer or whether you're a millionaire in an established company. We need to be more fluid in talking about our mindsets. So.
I can't agree more. So before we wrap it up, if anyone wants to,
I've literally got 2 minutes of space.
okay, if anyone wants to reach out to Wes, please just click the link below. We're gonna have his profile, his social media presence, Instagram, Facebook, website. So reach out to Wes. Such a lovely guy.
Definitely.
And he's only got 3 spots left, so hurry up.
Yes, that's right.
You know, marketing before. just put sold out down the bottom. It's, oh my god. No, thank you.
Thank you. You want a bit more? Yeah, maybe a bit more.